Hey everyone, this is Kenny Coins with Marathon Money, and we're back. And so many people's been asking me since the stock went up on June 2nd to like $33. When the first time we had this show, it was at $11. A lot of great things happened between April and July. Today's July 7th, and I'm really, really happy about how this stock's been moving since we brought Alan on the show. Um, but first thing I want to say, and I just want to review some of the things that happened between April. The motor factory capacity doubled, and is that Alan? Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I mean, not overnight, right? We brought in more people and more machines, but we're basically at double what we were pretty much now versus the start of the quarter.
Upgrade Energy acquisition. You signed on 52 million plus another 26 million earning out. How is that going? That upgraded on May 11th.
No, that's going great. Actually, 10 people from our team are over there now, like working on integration with them. We're helping them hire so that everybody comes on board when they come on board and just working to close. And also announced we added another almost 15,000 square feet in Orlando to also do batteries.
Man, that's amazing. Can you elaborate what they're going to bring to the business?
Yeah, batteries are another really important product for drones. And if you think about right now with defense, a lot of it is one way. So you only need one or two batteries per drone. But when you start to think about delivery or domestic or anything like that, it's more like 5 to 10 batteries per drone. So when you really look at what the FAA is doing, and not only is it the defense segment big, but really then the domestic segment, I think batteries are going to be about 50% of the TAM for the domestic segment. So starting to really get up to speed, be sure we're reliable there, get all of that working, provide American-made batteries for the warfighter, and then ultimately American-made batteries for delivery companies or whoever replaces DJI, something that it takes time. It takes time to get factories up and running and quality good and everything else. So we're just trying to go as fast as we can to be ready.
And because when you guys added the acquisition, that pretty much going to put you guys in the playing field you guys want to be in. That's going to give you guys a bigger web, a longer leg to stretch. Is that how I'm seeing it? Because you have a company that already knows how to do this.
Yeah, so they're really good. We've been working with them for a long time, selling their batteries through anyway. So we've already made a lot of our stuff work together. Our initial goal as a company a couple of years ago when we set out was to first do the whole powertrain, all the way from the batteries through the motors, because that whole thing, if it doesn't work well together, you don't get the best performance. But also, if it doesn't work well together, the drone falls out of the sky. So we think if we have the whole powertrain platform, we get really good at that and pair it all, then as drones are delivering pizzas or burritos or whatever, you can be sure that the core propulsion engine isn't going to cause it to fall out of the sky. And then you can build the AI and the cameras and everything on top of that. So we're really interested in that basic propulsion layer and being a primary parts provider for that. And getting to the quality and the scale and everything where we're good enough where then a lot of other companies can use that as a starting point for all the awesome stuff they do.
So can we talk about like quarter one earnings that came out in May? You know what I mean? And let's talk about quarter one 2025. That was 2 million in revenue. Quarter one to 2026, 8.1 million in revenues. Those numbers are correct.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a 300% plus growth. What would you say, like under your leadership, like what was done differently to make up that gap in 1 year?
What you see is the market turned on with drone dominance and a lot of the other actions a little more than a year ago with government buys. And so we really have migrated from being a primary retail store to being an enterprise sales channel. And we just started building capacity ahead of that, and now we're there. And then I think what we did was really smart. Last August, September, we built our whole leadership layer. And some people started a little later, but we really have a good senior leadership team that's been able to scale and continues to scale to let us build into this as the market opportunity has shown up. Oh, I can't hear you. You're muted, Kenny.
I apologize. No, I definitely
no worries, man.
I definitely seen that. then Trump came out. That's kind of what like segue to my next question. Trump's administration came out with the funding discussing like drones and drone warfare, and then that's kind of when your stock kind of like started really skyrocketing up. Because I know in the last interview there is that big program funding happening in August and September that we spoke about. Can you elaborate on the funding and the president and the administration being behind all this?
Yeah, and I would say it's even bigger than just the administration. Like, this is a bipartisan supported thing in Congress. So it doesn't even matter what side of the table you sit on. Everybody is sort of pro robotics, pro automation, pro drones inside the Defense Department. So I just want people to be sure to at least recognize it's not as partisan as some of the other items are. What you saw was last year, some of the programs like the Drone Dominance Program, and the NDAA, the budget for defense, really starting last October had the first chunk of money to do drones and counter drones. And you see it really coming up now that they're talking about the budget for next year, the NDAA for next year. They're talking about a lot more money for DOG, which is the Autonomous Warfare Group. They just recently appointed somebody at a very senior level in the DoD to oversee all autonomous systems, including drones. So they're really starting to look at this as a whole category that's much bigger and starting to drive government purchases into the category across all size classes. And as part of that, those customers that are selling drones and other systems into the Defense Department or the Department of War, depending on your nomenclature of choice, they need domestic parts now. And so we're seeing that like snowball demand where government budgets are a big, slow-moving machine, and they're really now moving more and more toward drones and robotics. And we're seeing that reach downhill to us as a component supplier in a very meaningful way.
I was thinking when you talk about like what the whole, U.S. is doing, definitely with the military, definitely with Congress, I'm thinking about like, is that also going to be in R&D where you guys are going to take some of that money you guys will be receiving? Because I know you guys are just the kind of like, I don't want to say the middleman, but you guys are kind of like the NVIDIA. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter who win, you guys are supplying it. And that was one of the, I think a lot of retail investors in general, institutional investors really like, because then you really lose. Now, actually don't lose at all because it's, doesn't matter. You don't need to be on the side of the table. You just kind of just need to supply the product for those individuals that win or do. Even if some of them don't win, they still need the product. You still are supplying it. And I think that makes you a lot bigger, which leads into my next. And a lot of institutional firms are now saying your stock is worth $40, $50, $60. And from the leadership standpoint, how does that make you feel? And but also just personally, but like business wise, like what fundamentals do you see that maybe retail investors are not seeing and they're missing out?
Well, from a leadership perspective, it's a lot of pressure. So, I take it very seriously. I think everybody in our company does. What we're seeing is a weird market dynamic that it doesn't happen very often, which is everything from China got kicked out. So you don't have to make the market. Like, we don't really have to advertise. We don't have to put a ton of money into knocking on doors to drive incoming sales. So many drone companies know what kind of motors they want. They know what kind of components they want. They know what they want for batteries. And now they have to find different vendors. And so what we have is this opportunity, if we keep scaling, not just production, but improve quality, get our systems right, get procurement right, like do all the things to become a big boy as a company really fast. And that's hard. So I'm not dismissing that challenge. If we can do that, then there's a defense and domestic demand for billions of dollars worth of parts today. I think if we were producing $500 million worth of parts at the same level, volume, consistency, quality that the Chinese vendors were, that we would sell them all. And so we're just trying to get up that ladder as fast as we can without falling down. And I think that's where a lot of people are looking forward and saying, hey, We think Unusual Machines is well positioned. They haven't screwed it up yet. They're less likely to screw it up. In a few years, if they can keep growing at this rate, where are we going to be? Like, imagine we can hit another 300x, right? Then what would quarter one be next year? It'd be pretty good. We'd be starting to get there, but then we'd probably have to do another 300x after that. And once you're there, like if we can get there, we'd be at 100 million a year run rate. Okay, we're getting into it. If we can do that again, now you're looking at a fractional billion run rate. And so I think really the upside and the downside with the enthusiasm around our share price, for lack of better, is that there is pressure to continue growing at this pace operationally without breaking, but there's also the resources and the excitement and the awareness to do it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the whole world being like, well, you started doing it, so we believe you can do it. And
now we're on your side.
Yeah.
We're on your side now. Now perform.
Exactly. And so it's really exciting that people care, but it's also, all right,
we're here.
Full send. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead. The most exciting thing for me is everybody who owns our stock, who's there, it's a mandate from ownership to go after it.
Yeah.
And that's really empowering. It lets us go after it. It lets us do stuff like the $70 million material order, right? Because we can't build stuff if we don't have raw material. So we ordered $70 million worth of raw material because it takes about 6 months to get in before the factories are even ready to consume it. Like that's a pretty aggressive move.
Yeah, that is a pretty aggressive move. Just that topic. So, you made that move. The management drone market is currently supply demanding, expected to exceed supply through 27. This is not widely known through Reddit or Reddit channel. I had to tell, but I feel like that's kind of your biggest tailwind. So is customers really waiting in line for this?
Yeah, there's just not a lot of good options, right? And honestly, I wish we could sell more stuff faster to everybody. We're just about as fast as we can make things and validate that they're quality and get them done, they're going out the door. And, everybody's trying to figure it out. There's a whole lot of rapid scaling headache across the entire industry, including with us, right? And you're really starting to see it, and people are adapting to it. And I think the push from the current administration, coupled with where the markets are at and how much they believe and value this segment, you're seeing people that are solving problems in a way that's much faster than this would have ever been done through traditional procurement. So I think why it's messy and aggressive and fast and really hard, it's also working. And I think that is the really fascinating part of all this, right? We're being more aggressive. Our customers are being more aggressive. We're making more drones faster, more parts faster, onshoring faster than we would have any other way.
Man, that's amazing. That's amazing. I do want to talk to you about one of your, people that you promoted or your team promoted, Chief Revenue Officer, Stacy Wright, who, transferred from another company from 1.7 million revenue to 2 million quarterly revenue. And then she's the one that made the whole PWD happen, the 3.75 million. How is that your secret weapon?
Our whole staff is a secret weapon. Stacy's great. She drew our COO, Tyler, who we recently promoted to VP, as our chief of product. Everybody involved cares so much about the customer being successful, about quality, about what we're doing, that, it's not a 40-hour work week, right? It's answering the phone on the weekend. It's solving the problem. It's going above and beyond. And it's doing it not to get the sale, but to solve the problem. It's doing it with human connection and really caring. And she's been incredible and is building out her team and does a great job. So, and she actually has the opposite of a traditional sales problem. She doesn't have to go out there and get someone to buy. She has to manage an overwhelming amount of demand, set allocation, be sure people's expectations are met, taking feedback because we're growing up on what we're doing good and bad. And we get mostly the feedback on what we're doing bad. Just, that's human nature. And then distribute that across the company so we can improve really quickly. And she's been doing just an incredible job. So yeah, really excited.
Yeah, I read a lot. Definitely the stuff you guys got going on, and try to read through your 10Ks. Try to read through the stuff that you put out there. Try to find like things that most people wouldn't know. And I heard that she came from a company, did extremely well, came over here, brought things over to you guys, managing a lot. So like I feel like it's one of like you guys know. It seems like you guys know how to build a good team, and that's very important for any business.
Yeah, we all get along, right? So we're a collaborative culture. We're not here to tear somebody down or throw blame on anyone else. Like, basically, everybody knows. I tell everybody, 20% of our decisions are going to be wrong. Like, we're going too fast for that not to be true. And the second you're not willing to be wrong and just own it, and everybody collectively help you move on, then you're not willing to be aggressive enough to win in the current marketplace. And so when that's true and everybody's sort of on a team together, everybody puts in the work. It's been really cool, but just to see that and see everyone step up and then not try to tear other people down for their own good. It's one heck of a team.
It is. I see that you guys are doing very well. I do want to talk about the defensive dollar, and then if some of the things you can't say because everybody should know SEC, but Universal Machine expected like component opportunity 90 million in 2026, and it kind of jumps high in 2027 for $250 million. These numbers are formed from company guidance. It's not really well known out there, but this is just something I picked up by reading. Am I wrong, or can you elaborate?
Yeah, that's sort of what we said is the realizable market. Will we realize the whole thing? Man, if we do that, we crushed it, right? Like, somebody buy me a cookie, say good job, kind of thing. But that's what we're seeing as total demand signal right now. We got to scale operations to be able to fulfill it. But I think if we were producing that revenue volume of everything, then that's what we would see as our numbers.
Yeah, it's almost like 2x the jump in 1 year, like almost over 2x actually. You know what I mean? So that's the reason why it kind of caught my attention that the demand is really that high, and you guys are preparing for that demand. So it exceeds even the supply, the 70 million supply that you guys brought in. I'm very, very surprised at where like the drone industry itself is moving. You know what I mean?
So fast. I mean, if you look just what they're looking at for the department or the autonomous war group, DOG, they're looking to move it from a couple of billion to 50 billion, right? It just shows how much the defense market is moving that way. And then when you think on top of that, the FAA is going to pass 108 and the domestic market's going to move that way too. There's a really big swing driving huge appetite for drones. I mean, you see similar parallels in AI, whether it's for energy or for memory. There's these other parallels in the marketplace right now that are also seeing these really strong demand indicators, and some of those are a little bit ahead of where drones are, but you're seeing it in drones now too.
No, I definitely see it. I see it kind of where the world's moving, definitely with everything going on in the Middle East. Definitely just simply like just even customer use. Everything is all about speed now. Everything is about speed and efficiency, and doing everything kind of just like without humans moving too much. And drones does solve a big, huge gap in that. But I do want to talk about somebody like your military, military wins, the U.S. Army 101 Airborne Division. You secured that.
They bought. That was with a partner. They didn't buy directly from us. They bought through a partner of ours as a reseller. So we have we don't really do direct government work. We sell through, we're B2B to G.
Yeah.
And so in that way, we were selling kits that they wanted with a partner of ours that went through to them. But we do have good relationships with the end customer, and we want to be sure that the parts we're providing and the things we're doing match ultimately what the different groups in the Department of War want to buy and how they want it sourced. Right? Like they do the blue list, they put parts on the blue list, they do the other things. So not only do we have relationships with companies like RegCAD or Ondas or the companies buying the parts, but we also then have to have relationships with the end customer that is really creating the regulatory framework around which they want to buy and see the domestic industrial base be revitalized.
So like, just to get like Campus, Guardian Angel, Envision Technology, Strategic Logic, those are like all through B2G. What
we sell to them, they sell to the government. B2B2G.
2G. Yeah, okay, got it.
Yeah.
So like that's still great. You guys are still doing good. Like to me, that's you guys are still moving the product. You guys are still doing what you guys need to do. You know what I mean? One thing I do want to say about on this, I know this was before the first interview March, and now something I didn't bring up. You guys have a strategic investment with them.
Yeah.
What I mean? And can you talk about that strategic investment? They chose to invest in UMAC at $17 a share. This kind of institutional validations like your company is really a great company. I mean, you definitely have a lot of people watching now. Definitely other companies buying into your company.
Yeah, and so if you look at particular what Eric's doing with Ondas, and more recently, and I think this is more public now, putting together an American group sort of for drones, and I think they just bought Design, for instance. So if you look across a lot of their particularly US-centric customers, we're a supplier for them. So it was just another way to solidify that relationship as we go forward. So great partnership, get along great with Eric. Think what they're doing is really neat on the sort of bringing a lot of smaller companies together under an umbrella to make a larger company as this goes really fast. And from our end, it just further strengthens the relationship, and more particularly for a lot of what you're starting to see is their U.S. Emergent U.S. thesis. We're a supplier for some of that.
Before we get to the end, is there anything Q3, Q4 we can expect that when we sit down again, we can come back to? So, what should a retail institutional investor should expect from you? I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but what should we be looking out for?
Well, I think the first thing, the real thing is going to be in about a month here when we put out Q2 results, right? I think being sure that we're still tracking, taking a look and saying, okay, they're still executing. If we match what are ahead or behind where you think, whatever, everybody's going to be able to make their own judgments there. So I think really that's the first thing I'd look for. I think Q3 can very often be kind of the doldrums of summer. Bankers aren't in, a lot of the hedge fund folks are off, people are taking summer holiday with their kids. So I don't know what'll happen from a stock price perspective. I always find the summer to be weird.
Yeah. What about a business perspective? Like, what are you guys planning to do from here on out to the end of the year? Is there anything to watch out for, things that we should take notice? Because like a lot of this stuff happens, there's so much noise in the market that, people miss out on things that could potentially show you guys are a great company.
Yeah, so what I think you'll see is we're going to just keep our heads down and keep doing work in this coming quarter. We want to close the Upgrade Energy acquisition. I think you won't see substantial announcements till Drone Dominance gets resolved late August. So, that'll be middle to late of the quarter. I think you'll see that program come together. And then I honestly think you're going to see a lot of macro movement in our equity based on how the midterm elections look, based on what the government budget looks like going into September, October when it rolls over, any late acquisitions during sweeps. So typically, I don't know if you know much about government procurement, but for a lot of money, it expires at the end of the government fiscal year, which is the end of September. So you get a lot of money deployed mid-August through the end of September. And some of it gets announced in early October. So it'll really be interesting to see what buckets of money and where that money gets deployed going into the end of the fiscal year. It could be really big contracts for drone companies as some of that money is use it or lose it and gets allocated toward that in this August, September timeframe. So I think it's going to be real boring until August. I think we'll kick that off with earnings. I think it'll stay boring till you start to see the Drone Dominance Gauntlet program pick its winners, and then really late August into September, look at sweeps plus the election cycle. I think is going to create a really dynamic situation. And so I think you could see volatility, interest, real uplift, a lot of fascinating things by the September timeframe for what we're doing. But I think July probably going to be boring. Thank goodness. I could use a boring month, but I think
you could. Definitely, it's a very exciting. You're in a very exciting space. Everybody's very hyped, and I do one thing before we jump off. What is your prediction from 2026 to 2030? How big this market can get? I'm hearing 100 billion, 200 billion. Like this market but for somebody who's doing this day in and day out, who knows this, like, where do you see this entire market can get?
I think the hardware market, so drone sales and drone part sales in the US, not globally, for category 1 and maybe some small category 2 drones. So let's put a box around what I'm talking about, rather than be like all autonomy. You're probably looking at, my guess is somewhere around a $20 to $30 billion total market, with half of that being commercial, at least. Europe's going to buy a bunch of drones. Canada's going to buy a bunch of drones. A whole bunch of the autonomy from the US government's going to go to boats and bigger aircraft and missiles. So I'm just talking about this box of, drones this size, right? And I think just the hardware, just the parts market, my guess 2030 will be $20 to $30 billion.
Okay. And then so that number, that 100 billion to it, is probably a global number.
It's probably a global number. It could include bigger drones. Once you get to bigger drones, like Anduril size drones or AeroVironment size drones, that number gets big fast.
Okay.
Right? Like, I'm not including Archer or any of the human transportation stuff. I'm talking about way more of the market where everything we're doing, we sit in it right now. That's kind of my take. And honestly, it's a pretty good market.
Mm-hmm.
If we can do some work in there, we'll meet those expectations that people have for us, which is all we're trying to do now. I don't need to exceed expectations now. I just need to meet expectations on my shareholder review card.
100%, man. Everybody loves you out there. Every time I get on Stockton, Twitter, or on Reddit, everybody's just like, "Oh, when are you gonna get him on? When are you gonna get him on?" I say, "Guys, it's like he's super busy. I'll try to get him on, but I know people want another show, closer to the end of the year, guys. But we'll try to make that happen, and I look forward to this again. I think the knowledge and what you guys are doing is amazing. You guys are definitely. This is the type of company I like. I believe you guys are no different from it. I wouldn't be surprised if you guys start to dominate that world, because you guys are in the middle. You guys are here to supply everybody. That's it. I really like that, and that's really what a good business is. You guys don't really, things can't really hurt you. You got a wide moat, in my opinion. So guys, we're hopping off. Any one last thing you want to say, Evan, Alan, before we get off?
Yeah, I honestly, none of this would be possible without our shareholders and the investors and the people watching this. So I do want to say thank you. Appreciate the attention. Appreciate Karen, Kenny. Appreciate you. Always think this is great. So happy to do it regularly.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to come back on and closer to the end of the year, discuss the whole year. Like, just looking at last year was like, yo, you guys are just 300%, 200%, 150%. You guys are just knocking that ball. Like, I would have been, I would have been happy with 50%. You guys are just knocking it out of the park every single time. And it's glad
We have to. Our customers need it, right? Like trust me, we don't want to go this fast. I'd rather be 50%, but the demand's just like we're running wide open. So it's exciting. But again, none of this is possible without everybody involved. So
but you guys are handling it so greatly. You guys are handling it perfectly. So you guys are able to
so far.
You know when the example of the space in Orlando, you know when to expand. You guys are not trying to do something that's out of your capabilities. So, you know when to expand, you know when to grow, you know what's too much and what's not, what space you could be in. And you guys are doing all right. So, well, end of the year, we'll talk some more and then see where you guys are at. See after the whole drone dominance happens,
Yeah, it'll be exciting. And again, always appreciate it. So thank you so much.
All right. Peace.